You work for me. Really good job. And maybe
Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the complete storyline and breaking down the epic recap of Step by Step into His Bed. Before we unpack this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. This short drama tells a classic romance trope story about a complicated office-turned-family relationship. Without further ado, let's get into the recap.
The heavy bass of the club music throbbed in Lena's chest. She gripped her glass tightly. Work had been a living nightmare lately. She desperately needed this escape. A tall figure approached her in the dim light. His presence was incredibly commanding. Lena blinked heavily. Her vision was completely blurred from all the strong drinks. "Lena, you have had way too much," the man said. His voice was deep and rich. She tried to focus on his face. The loud room was spinning dangerously around her. "Do you even know who I am? Huh?" he asked. There was a clear hint of dry amusement in his tone. Lena squinted hard. The bright neon lights played tricks on her eyes. "Why are there two of you?" she mumbled. Her words were hopelessly slurred together. She swayed slightly on her feet. Strong hands instantly reached out to steady her. Then, a sudden spark of recognition pierced through her drunken haze. She gasped softly. "No, wait! You are Elliot Crawford, her absolute nightmare of a demanding boss." Instead of fear, the alcohol fueled a strange bravado in her system. She pointed a shaky, accusatory finger at his firm chest. "That guy is absolutely the worst." Elliot raised an elegant eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What did he do?" he asked, playing along smoothly. He leaned in closer. The scent of his expensive cologne enveloped her. "Everything," Lena groaned dramatically. "He is always giving me that horrible look. Like smiling might actually kill him." She rolled her eyes with heavy exaggeration. Elliot let out a very low, quiet chuckle. "Is that so?" he murmured. He did not pull away from her. Instead, his dark gaze intensified as he looked down at her face. "But you," Lena continued, completely oblivious to the danger. She patted his chest gently. "You are way hotter than that jerk. Like, way hotter." "It is not even close." A heavy, charged silence fell between them. The loud club music faded into the background. Elliot stared at her intensely. His large hands were resting on her waist. "Every day I got to watch what I say around him," Lena complained bitterly. She leaned her weight against him. "But not tonight. Tonight you definitely work for me." She smiled a brilliant, completely tipsy smile at him. "Really good job. And maybe I will leave you a nice sleep." She giggled softly at her own nonsensical joke. Elliot's eyes flashed with a sudden, dangerous heat. "Whatever you say, boss," he whispered against her hair. He gently guided her away from the noisy, crowded bar. The rest of the night was a chaotic blur of heated touches and tangled bed sheets. The darkness of the hotel room hid his identity perfectly. She surrendered completely. Morning sunlight pierced fiercely through the heavy hotel curtains. Lena groaned in pain, burying her face in the soft pillow. Her head pounded with a vicious hangover. She rolled over lazily. Her hand brushed against a warm, highly muscular chest. Her eyes flew open instantly. Pure panic seized her throat. The man beside her was asleep. "Oh my God!" she breathed out in sheer, unadulterated horror. She instantly recognized that sharp jawline. "That is Elliot, my boss." Elliot. Her heart hammered violently. She scrambled desperately out of the large bed, grabbing her scattered clothes. "What the hell did I do last night?" she whispered frantically. She had to escape now. Chapter 2, the mother of all surprises. Lena rushed into the sunny resort lobby later that afternoon. She was still reeling from the terrible morning panic. She just wanted to find her mother and finally relax. "Lena, babe, you are vacationing here too," a very familiar, cheerful voice called out. Lena turned quickly to see her mother walking towards her with a bright smile. "Mom, I thought you were in California," Lena said, hugging her tightly. "When did you get back? And who is this?" She noticed the handsome older man beside her mother. The distinguished man smiled warmly at her. "Richard Crawford, pleasure to meet you." He extended a friendly hand. Lena shook it politely, completely unaware of the doom. Your mother and I met while traveling, Richard explained happily. His eyes sparkled with genuine, deep affection. We have been together for a wonderful 6 months, Margaret beamed brightly at her daughter. And we are getting married. Isn't it exciting? Lena's jaw dropped open in absolute shock. Married? This was incredibly sudden. Come stay with us for a few days, Margaret insisted with eagerness. You can help me with the beautiful wedding. It will be so much fun having you here with us. Plus, Margaret added, gently patting Lena's arm, it will give you a perfect chance to get to know your future brother. Lena blinked in utter confusion. Future brother? My future what? Lena asked, her voice trembling slightly. Richard chuckled loudly and patted his beautiful fiancée's hand. He looked incredibly proud of his family. My son, Elliot Crawford, Richard announced with absolute pride. He is in finance too. You two might even have a lot in common. He is a very hard-working young man. The bright world suddenly stopped spinning. The air rapidly left Lena's lungs. No, 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 she chanted desperately in her head. This simply could not be happening. Elliot Crawford, her ruthless, cold-hearted boss. The exact same man she had just slept with mere hours ago. He was about to become her stepbrother. It was a nightmare. Suddenly, heavy, familiar footsteps approached from behind her. Lena froze entirely. Sweetheart, was that your boyfriend? I barely saw him, Margaret asked casually. Lena spun around in a panic. Elliot was standing right there, looking completely calm and unfazed. What? No, God, no, Lena stammered. Her face burned with intense heat. He is definitely not my boyfriend, Lena blurted out far too quickly. Elliot's lips twitched into a tiny, wicked smirk. He was clearly enjoying her absolute meltdown. Okay, what just happened? Elliot asked smoothly, feigning total, innocent confusion. He looked at his father and then at Margaret, playing the perfect, loving son. Wait, was that my dad? Elliot asked, his dark gaze finally landing on Lena's terrified face. The fake shock in his voice was award-winning. Lena wanted to scream loudly. Later that afternoon, Elliot cornered her alone in the quiet hallway. Well, that is quite awkward, he murmured. Dad is marrying the lovely Margaret Bennett, which means Lena is my new stepsister, he added softly. I really didn't see that one coming. His eyes roamed over her highly flushed face with clear amusement. You should invite him to dinner tonight, Margaret had said earlier in the lobby. I would absolutely love to meet him properly, Richard had agreed enthusiastically. Great idea. I will call Elliot too. The kids should really get to know each other, Richard had proclaimed happily. Lena vividly remembered her silent, screaming panic. No, no, don't call him, Lena had pleaded internally, but it was far too late. Now they were deeply stuck in this massive lie, and Elliot was loving every single second. Chapter 3, The Secret Dinner. The elegant dinner table was set beautifully with fine china. Lena sat rigidly in her comfortable chair. Every time she looked up, Elliot was watching her intently. Suddenly, a mobile phone rang loudly through the room. It was a very specific, sharp ringtone. Lena gasped quietly. Huh, that is weird, Richard noted with a frown. Sounds exactly like Elliot's ringtone, Richard added in confusion. Lena fumbled blindly with her purse in absolute panic. That was my work phone, she lied quickly. Her heart pounded fiercely against her ribs as she silenced the loud, ringing device. Emergency! Huge emergency, she added, trying desperately to sound professional. She stood up abruptly from the fine table. She desperately needed fresh air. The heavy, unspoken tension in the dining room was completely suffocating her right now. Your work phone? Margaret asked, looking deeply puzzled by this behavior. Since when do you ever bring that on vacation? It was a very fair, logical question. Since my boss decided to completely ruin my vacation, Lena muttered angrily under her breath. Elliot smirked softly from across the table. He took a slow sip of wine. Okay, love you both. I will find you later, Lena announced a bit too loudly. She practically sprinted out of the formal dining room. She needed to escape his gaze. Elliot casually followed her out shortly after. He found her pacing the empty, carpeted hallway. Well, one night stand to step-siblings. That is quite a jump. That has got to be some kind of historical record, he noted. He leaned against the wall casually. Little sister, he mocked softly. The nickname sent a shiver down her spine. Seriously, did you know about this? Any of this? Lena demanded furiously. Her hands were balled into incredibly tight fists. She was ready to fight him right now. Relax, Elliot said smoothly, totally unfazed by her burning anger. He took a slow step closer to her. The air between them instantly shifted, growing very heavy. If I had known exactly who you were, I would have been a lot gentler last night, little sis, he whispered. His voice was a dark, seductive rumble in the quiet hall. Lena's face turned bright, angry red. Jesus, shut up, she hissed aggressively, looking around the hallway frantically. Nobody can ever know about last night. My mom is finally completely happy, she commanded firmly, poking his firm chest. We are absolutely not screwing that up. Elliot smoothly caught her moving hand. Before he could offer a witty reply, they heard loud voices approaching. Shit, they are back, Lena gasped in sheer terror. Move! Behind the curtain right now, she grabbed his strong arm and dragged him into a dark, hidden alcove. They hid safely behind the heavy velvet drapes. Their bodies were pressed tightly together. Lena held her breath in the dark space. Elliot's broad chest rose and fell rhythmically against hers. It felt exactly like last night. The dangerous, thrilling proximity. Once the hallway was finally clear, they quickly stepped out. Lena smoothed down her elegant dress nervously. She had to establish firm, professional boundaries instantly. From now on, we keep our absolute distance, Lena stated as clearly as possible. No weird looks, no weird comments, no stupid mistakes. She tried to sound commanding. Just then, Elliot's loyal assistant walked by them. Boss, your car is ready downstairs, Jack announced formally. He paused suddenly, noticing Lena standing way too close. Ms. Bennett, what are you doing here? Jack asked in genuine, complete surprise. Lena froze completely. She had totally forgotten that Jack was also at the resort. Elliot stepped incredibly smoothly in front of her. Jack, you saw absolutely nothing here, he ordered in his cold, terrifying CEO voice. Jack nodded instantly and fled. That eager to join the family, or were you just looking for an excuse to get your hands on me again? Elliot teased her smoothly. His dark eyes sparkled with wicked delight. He stepped incredibly close, trapping her near the wall. Lena pushed against his chest, but he did not budge at all. You know, for someone who keeps telling me to stay away, you spend a lot of time in my arms, he whispered warmly. His breath fanned across her highly flushed cheeks. Dinner tonight, Richard announced brightly when they all regrouped. Margaret and her daughter will be there. Try to make a very good impression, son. Richard patted Elliot's broad shoulder with deep fatherly affection. Do not worry, Dad, Elliot replied easily. I will be on my absolute best behavior. He shot Lena a very brief, knowing look. I simply cannot wait to officially meet my brand new little sister. Lena wanted to punch him. Please, Lena scoffed quietly under her breath. If I did not see your cold poker face every single day at the office, I might actually believe that obvious lie. Elliot merely offered her a dazzling, completely fake smile. Later that evening, they gathered in the beautiful living room. Honey, you always know how to spoil me, Margaret cooed at Richard. She looked absolutely radiant. And Elliot, this place is gorgeous. You really outdid yourself. Speaking of which, Richard said, turning to Lena with genuine curiosity. Where is this mysterious boyfriend of yours? I was hoping to meet him tonight. Lena shifted very uncomfortably on the plush, expensive sofa. He is busy, Lena lied quickly. Massive work crisis. I will bring him around another time for sure. She completely avoided looking at Elliot. She could feel his highly amused gaze practically burning a hole in her head. Really? That is such a shame. Elliot drawled lazily. He took a slow sip of his expensive bourbon. Anyone casually dating my lovely sister must be a pretty lucky guy. His voice dripped with heavy, undisguised sarcasm. Lucky? Please, Lena shot back sharply, unable to stop herself. He is just some arrogant jerk who ended up in the wrong room. She glared at him pointedly. Elliot's confident smirk only grew wider at her angry outburst. Oh, so the bossy thing does not do it for you? Elliot countered smoothly, lowering his deep voice. The double meaning hung heavily in the tense air between them. Richard and Margaret remained completely oblivious to the war. All right, you two, Richard interrupted joyfully, clapping his hands together. Elliot, she is your family now. You must look after her. He looked at his tall son with serious expectation. Elliot nodded solemnly. Of course, Dad, Elliot promised smoothly. His eyes never left Lena's terrified face. I will take very good care of her. He made it sound like a dark, highly dangerous threat. Lena shivered involuntarily at his tone. The wedding is in 3 days, Margaret announced happily. I want you both there with us. Lena nodded firmly. Mom is finally happy, she reminded herself. Stay away from Elliot. That is all I have to do. Absolutely no mistakes. Chapter 5, Unspoken Feelings. Excuse me, Lena muttered abruptly. She needed to escape the suffocating room immediately. She practically ran toward the quiet garden terrace outside. The cool night air hit her flushed face gently, providing instant relief. She hurried down the stone steps in her high heels. Suddenly, her foot caught on a very uneven stone. She tumbled forward with a sharp gasp. Strong arms caught her firmly before she could hit the hard ground. It was Elliot. You always this unsteady after a long, wild night? He asked softly, pulling her against his solid chest. Careful, little sister. His teasing tone was completely gone. He actually sounded slightly worried about her safety. Oh my God, sweetheart, Margaret cried out, rushing outside with Richard close behind her. Let me see. Does it hurt badly? Lena winced in pain as she tried to put a tiny bit of weight on her throbbing right ankle. I think I twisted it, Lena admitted quietly, biting her lower lip. Her ankle was rapidly swelling up. That is swelling extremely fast, Richard noted with deep concern. Elliot, take her home right now. I will get a doctor. Before Lena could even protest, Elliot scooped her up effortlessly into his strong arms. Hey, I have got you, he whispered gently against her ear. He carried her carefully toward his sleek luxury car parked out front. Later that evening, Lena sat on her comfortable bed with an ice pack on her swollen ankle. She dialed her mother's number feeling incredibly guilty. Mom, I am so sorry. I totally ruined the nice dinner tonight for everyone. Honey, it is just one dinner, Margaret replied warmly through the phone. Trust me, we will survive. If we have to move the beautiful wedding, we move it, Lena gasped in sheer horror at the extreme suggestion. No, absolutely not. Lena insisted firmly. You have waited way too long for this, Margaret sighed softly. Be completely honest with me, sweetie. You actually like them, do you not? Richard? Elliot? Lena hesitated for a very long moment. She recalled Elliot carrying her so gently earlier. Hey, I have got you. His deep voice echoed warmly in her busy mind. She let out a small, highly conflicted sigh into the phone receiver. Richard is very kind, Lena finally admitted quietly. And Elliot, maybe he is not quite as annoying as I initially thought. She felt her cheeks heat up slightly as she remembered his firm, comforting grip on her waist. The next morning, Lena carefully hopped into the sunny resort kitchen. Elliot was already there, cooking a massive, delicious breakfast spread. Morning, sis, he greeted casually without turning around from the hot stove. The wedding starts sharply at 10, he informed her smoothly. Dad and Margaret are already there setting up. He placed a beautiful plate of food gently in front of her. Lena stared at the warm meal in complete shock. Mom would never make this, Lena observed suspiciously, poking the eggs. She completely knows that I am highly allergic. Elliot pointed to her specific plate calmly. This particular one is yours. Absolutely no salmon. Lena froze with her fork midair. She stared up at his handsome face in absolute disbelief. Wait, how do you even know I am allergic to salmon? She demanded sharply. They never once discussed her allergies at work. Elliot leaned forward slightly, resting his large hands on the marble counter. Elliot, we are never talking about that crazy night again. Ever, Lena warned fiercely, completely misinterpreting his heavy silence. He ignored her warning completely. Still so incredibly sweet, he murmured softly. I will get to the wedding all by myself, Lena declared stubbornly, trying to stand up. We are supposed to be keeping our distance, remember? Careful, Elliot warned gently, stepping closer to support her weight. I did not force feed you a highly nutritious breakfast for absolutely nothing. You need to keep your blood sugar perfectly stable today. Please, I have a very good system, Lena argued defensively, crossing her arms. And anyway, I just eat chocolate when I need a boost. She paused abruptly. Her eyes widened massively. Wait, how do you know about that? She recalled the expensive treats left randomly on her desk at the busy office. No way, she gasped loudly, her jaw dropping open. The fancy chocolates magically appearing in my desk drawer. That was actually you. Whoever is silently sending these expensive gifts clearly knows you way too well, a coworker had joked once. Lena stared at her intimidating boss. A secret admirer? Are you sure you do not have a secret admirer? Elliot smirked slowly, looking incredibly handsome in the morning light. Are you highly disappointed? he asked softly, stepping into her personal space. Were you secretly hoping it was someone else leaving those for you? Boss, she breathed out nervously. She was completely trapped against the cold kitchen counter. By the way, you still owe me a massive tip for that night's excellent service, he whispered hotly right against her ear. Oh my God! Stop, Lena squeaked in panic, her face burning completely red. That was clearly just a stupid joke. She tried desperately to push his solid chest away, but he did not move a single inch backward. A demanding boss who absolutely refuses to pay her outstanding debts. Elliot teased mercilessly. His dark eyes sparkled with sheer mischief. Not a very great look for you, little sister. He finally stepped back slowly. Nope, absolutely not, Lena muttered to herself angrily. She paced around her large bedroom. He is my boss. He is my worst enemy. He is my new stepbrother. She paused in front of the huge mirror. She took a very deep breath. I will absolutely not fall for him, she promised her reflection fiercely. She had to stay strong. She carefully pulled on her elegant bridesmaid dress. The soft fabric felt expensive. She struggled slightly with the long zipper on the back. Her twisted ankle throbbed. Suddenly, the bedroom door clicked open quietly. Elliot stepped inside the room without knocking. He looked breathtakingly handsome in his sharp, tailored black suit. He stopped dead in his tracks. His dark eyes slowly raked over her partially zipped dress. A heavy, charged silence filled the entire room instantly. He swallowed hard. What? Lena snapped defensively. She desperately tried to reach the stubborn zipper. Do you like what you see? The sarcastic words tumbled out before she could stop them. Elliot's gaze darkened with raw hunger. I need to change, Lena stammered in sudden panic. She pointed toward the small dressing room attached to her large bedroom. Just then, Elliot's phone buzzed loudly in his pocket. He answered it quickly. Yeah, Dad. We are coming downstairs right now, he said smoothly into the phone. She is almost ready, he added, his eyes never leaving Lena's highly flushed face. He ended the short call and slipped the phone away. They are waiting for us. Lena quickly retreated into the small dressing room. Okay, so he is incredibly handsome, she whispered to herself. And he is filthy rich. And he is annoyingly nice. She successfully yanked the dress zipper up completely. Still not happening, she declared firmly to the empty room. Yeah, I will be there soon, she called out loudly. Chapter 7, The Wedding Panic. Downstairs at the gorgeous venue, the beautiful guests were already taking their designated seats. Richard checked his gold watch nervously. He looked around the grand hall. The ceremony starts in exactly 20 minutes, Richard whispered to Margaret. Where did those two disappear to? Margaret smiled brightly and squeezed his hand gently. Relax, darling, Margaret reassured him softly. I just talked to Elliot on the phone. They are on their way down right now. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from upstairs. Margaret frowned deeply in sudden concern. Oh no, Lena, is everything perfectly okay up there? She called out loudly toward the massive staircase. She started walking up. Back in the bedroom, utter chaos had just erupted. Lena had tripped over a heavy chair. Elliot, get out of here right now, Lena hissed in absolute panic. They could easily hear footsteps approaching the heavy bedroom door. They are literally in the dressing room. Margaret's voice drifted clearly through the thick walls. Oh my God, Lena gasped in sheer terror. She grabbed Elliot's arm aggressively. No, if they actually walk in right now and see us together, we are completely dead. Elliot quickly pulled her into the tiny, confined space of the walk-in closet. He shut the wooden door firmly behind them. They were trapped together in the utter darkness. Lena pressed her back flat against the cold wall. Her heart hammered violently against her ribs. Elliot's tall body caged her in perfectly. The space was way too small. Quiet, he breathed softly against her ear. His warm hand covered her mouth very gently. She could feel the rapid, heavy beating of his heart against her own chest. The bedroom door slowly clicked open outside. Margaret and Richard stepped into the empty room. Lena, are you in here? Margaret called out. The tension was suffocating. In the dark closet, Elliot's thumb slowly caressed Lena's soft cheek. His dark eyes burned intensely through the shadows. Their hidden secret was completely on the line. Will they get caught before the big wedding? The silent question hung heavily in the dark, confined space. Lena squeezed her eyes shut tightly and prayed for a miracle. The pounding music in the club was a massive headache. Elliot Crawford preferred quiet, sophisticated lounges. But tonight, he needed a strong drink. He scanned the crowded, messy dance floor with cold, calculating eyes. Then, he saw her, Lena Bennett, his brilliant but incredibly frustrating assistant. She was swaying dangerously near the sticky bar. She had clearly consumed way too much alcohol. He sighed heavily and walked right toward her. "Lena, you have had way too much," he said firmly. He expected her to apologize and run away in sheer panic. Instead, she looked up at him with completely glazed eyes. She did not recognize him at all in the dim lighting. "Do you even know who I am? Huh?" he asked. A strange sense of amusement washed over him quickly. She squinted hard at his handsome face. "Why are there two of you?" she mumbled weakly. She swayed forward dangerously. He caught her instantly. His strong hands gripped her tiny waist to keep her steady. "No, wait. You are Elliot Crawford," she gasped softly. He braced himself for her usual nervous apologies. But the apology never came. "That guy is absolutely the worst," she declared boldly. Elliot raised his dark eyebrows in genuine surprise. "Oh yeah? What did he do?" he asked casually. He leaned in closer. He wanted to hear her honest, unfiltered thoughts. "Everything," she groaned loudly over the heavy music. "He is always giving me that horrible look. Like smiling might actually kill him." Elliot felt a very rare, genuine chuckle escape his chest. She was completely fearless. "But you," Lena said, patting his firm chest gently. "You are way hotter than that jerk." "Like, way hotter?" Elliot felt a sudden, unexpected jolt of pure heat in his veins. No one ever spoke to him like this. It was intoxicating. "Every day I got to watch what I say around him," she continued happily. "But not tonight. Tonight you definitely work for me." She smiled brilliantly. "Really good job. And maybe I will leave you a nice sleep." He stared down at her flushed, beautiful face. The strict boundaries of their professional relationship vanished into thin air. "Whatever you say, boss," he whispered smoothly. He gently led her away from the noisy, crowded bar. The night turned into a rapid blur of intense passion. She was fierce and completely uninhibited in the dark hotel room. When he finally fell asleep, she was tangled securely in his strong arms. It felt surprisingly perfect. He woke up the very next morning to the sound of frantic rustling. He kept his eyes closed, listening as she scrambled out of the large bed. "What the hell did I do last night?" she whispered in absolute, sheer terror. He heard the heavy hotel door click shut rapidly. She had run away. Elliot finally opened his dark eyes and stared at the empty ceiling. A slow, wicked smirk spread across his face. This situation had just become highly interesting. Chapter 9, Elliot's Perspective. The trap. Elliot walked into the bright resort lobby that afternoon. His father, Richard, had insisted they meet his new fiancée and her daughter. Elliot spotted his father standing near the glass entrance with a lovely older woman. Then, he saw the young woman standing right next to them. It was Lena. She looked completely pale and utterly terrified. "My son, Elliot Crawford," his father announced proudly. Elliot watched as the color drained from her face. "He is in finance too. You two might even have a lot in common," Richard added happily. Elliot felt a sudden, massive urge to laugh out loud. The sheer irony of the situation was incredible. The universe was playing a joke. He walked up quietly behind her trembling form. "Sweetheart, was that your boyfriend?" "I barely saw him," Margaret asked Lena. Lena spun around and nearly crashed into his chest. Her beautiful eyes were wide with sheer panic. "What? No, God, no," Lena stammered rapidly. "He is definitely not my boyfriend." Elliot maintained a perfectly calm, neutral expression. "Okay, what just happened?" he asked smoothly, acting completely confused by her terror. "Wait. Was that my dad?" he added, looking at his father. He was putting on the best performance of a lifetime. Later, he found her pacing the quiet hotel hallway. "Well, that is quite awkward," he murmured into the silence. "Dad is marrying the lovely Margaret Bennett, which means Lena is my new stepsister. I really didn't see that one coming," he told her softly. He absolutely loved watching her squirm uncomfortably under his intense gaze. "No, no, don't call him," Lena had begged her mother earlier that day. Elliot remembered the absolute terror in her voice. Now, standing in the hallway, he knew she was totally trapped. "Little sister," he mocked her gently. "Seriously, did you know about this? Any of this?" Lena demanded angrily. She was ready to explode. "Relax," Elliot replied easily. "If I had known exactly who you were, I would have been a lot gentler last night, little sis." Her face turned a brilliant shade of crimson immediately. "Jesus, shut up," she hissed fiercely. "Nobody can ever know about last night. My mom is finally completely happy. We are absolutely not screwing that up ever." Before he could respond, voices echoed loudly down the hall. "Shit, they are back." Lena panicked wildly. "Move!" Behind the curtain right now, she dragged him forcefully into a hidden alcove. Their bodies crashed together. Elliot held his breath carefully, her soft curves pressed perfectly against his hard chest. He remembered the exact feeling from the night before. Once the coast was clear, she stepped away quickly to establish boundaries. "From now on, we keep our absolute distance," she ordered fiercely. Just then, Jack walked by them. "Miss Bennett, what are you doing here?" Jack asked. Elliot smoothly shielded her. "Jack, you saw nothing here," he commanded. Now, they were trapped in the tiny dressing room. Her soft body was pressed entirely against him in the dark. The wedding was starting very soon. His parents were standing right outside the wooden door. The tension was massive. "Quiet," he breathed softly against her ear. He covered her mouth gently with his large hand. He could feel her rapid breaths against his warm palm. The scent of her floral perfume filled the tiny, enclosed space completely. "Lena, are you in here?" Margaret called out from the bedroom. Elliot felt Lena tremble slightly against him. He wrapped his other arm firmly around her small waist to keep her steady. He would not let her fall apart right now. Footsteps approached the closet door slowly. The heavy silence in the dark was totally deafening. Elliot stared down at where he knew her face was. He wanted to kiss her deeply right then and there. The forbidden urge was strong. "She must have gone downstairs already." Richard's deep voice finally echoed from the bedroom. "Let us go, Margaret. The guests are waiting for us." The footsteps slowly retreated away from the wooden door. They were safe now. They heard the heavy bedroom door click shut firmly. They were completely alone again. Elliot slowly removed his warm hand from her soft mouth. Lena let out a massive, shaky breath. "That was way too close," she whispered softly. "Yes, it was," Elliot agreed darkly. He did not let go of her waist. He pulled her even closer in the pitch-black space. The dangerous game they were playing was reaching a breaking point. He could not deny his deep feelings. "Elliot, let me go. We have to get to the wedding right now," Lena pleaded nervously. Her hands rested flat against his broad chest. "My mom is waiting for me downstairs." She tried to push him away gently, but he stood firmly. "One condition," Elliot murmured smoothly into the dark room. He lowered his face until his lips gently brushed against hers. Lena gasped softly at the sudden, electric contact. She did not pull away from his intimate touch. "What condition?" she whispered breathlessly. Her hands gripped his dark suit jacket tightly. She was losing her desperate fight against him. The absolute chemistry between them was completely undeniable and incredibly powerful. "You stop running away from me, little sister," he demanded softly. "After this wedding is over, you and I are going to have a very long, serious talk about us." He kissed her forehead gently. The war between them was shifting. Lena swallowed hard in the thick darkness. She slowly nodded her head against his firm chest. "Okay," she finally agreed quietly. "We will talk later, but right now, we really need to leave this room." She stepped away slowly. Elliot pushed the closet door open slightly. The bright bedroom light blinded them for a second. He stepped out first to ensure the room was truly empty. He turned back and offered her his hand gracefully. "Let us go, boss." The massive wedding hall was decorated beautifully with white roses. Lena limped slightly as she walked down the long aisle. Elliot walked right beside her, offering silent support. Their parents smiled brightly from the altar. Margaret looked stunning in her elegant wedding dress. Richard held her hands with pure, absolute love. Lena felt a sudden wave of heavy guilt wash over her. She was actively hiding a massive secret from these happy people. The lovely ceremony was short and incredibly sweet. Richard and Margaret exchanged their heartfelt vows. They promised to love and cherish each other forever. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. It was a highly emotional moment. Elliot handed his father the gold wedding rings. He looked incredibly handsome and deeply serious. For a brief second, his dark eyes met Lena's across the altar. A silent, powerful promise passed swiftly between the two of them. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the kind officiant declared proudly. The room erupted into loud, joyful applause. Richard kissed Margaret passionately. The complicated new family was now completely and legally official. The lavish reception began immediately after the beautiful ceremony. Loud music played as guests danced happily. Lena sat quietly at the head table. She carefully rested her injured ankle on a soft chair beneath the tablecloth. "Are you doing okay, sweetie?" Margaret asked gently, walking over to her daughter. "Your ankle looks completely swollen." Lena smiled brightly to hide her deep panic. "I am perfectly fine, Mom. Just resting for a little bit. Elliot told me how he carried you inside last night." Margaret smiled warmly. "He is such a good brother to you already. I am so glad you two are getting along." Lena felt her stomach twist into a massive, painful knot. "Yes, he is highly helpful." Lena lied smoothly through her teeth. She desperately avoided looking at Elliot, who was currently talking to some guests nearby. He was a ruthless predator perfectly disguised as a true gentleman. Suddenly, Elliot walked straight toward their decorated table. He looked absolutely magnificent in the dim reception lighting. "May I steal my lovely new sister for a quick dance?" he asked Margaret with a charming, bright smile. "Oh, her ankle is hurting badly," Margaret noted sadly. "She really should not be dancing right now." Elliot shook his head gently. "Do not worry at all. I will completely support her weight. She will not feel a single thing." Before Lena could protest, Elliot gently pulled her up from the chair. He wrapped his strong arm securely around her waist. He basically carried her to the empty dance floor. Her feet barely touched the polished wooden ground. The music shifted into a slow, romantic melody. Elliot held her firmly. He pressed his hand against her lower back, pulling her close. Lena felt the heat radiating from him. She wanted to pull away but felt trapped. "Careful with the ankle," he whispered. His voice was a low, velvet hum against her skin. He moved with effortless grace, shielding her from the crowded room. She felt like they were the only two people alive. "Everyone is watching us," Lena hissed softly. She kept her eyes glued to his crisp, white shirt. She could feel his steady heartbeat against her chest. It was calm, rhythmic, and incredibly grounding to her. "Let them watch," Elliot replied smoothly. He spun her slowly. "They just see a new brother taking care of his sister." He tilted his head down. "Besides, you are a terrible dancer when you are nervous like this." Lena looked up at him finally. His dark eyes were filled with a strange, intense warmth. He wasn't mocking her anymore. He was focused entirely on her. She felt her resolve crumbling into dust in her mind. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why are you playing this game with me?" She needed the truth. The lies were becoming too heavy for her to carry alone in this room. Elliot stopped dancing. He held her steady in the middle of the crowded floor. "I am not playing a game," he said. He leaned in closer. "I am just waiting for you to realize that this is exactly where you belong." Lena felt a shiver run down her spine. The air felt thin and electrified. She didn't have an answer for him. She didn't even know what she wanted anymore. She was completely lost in his dark, intense gaze. "Dance with me," he commanded softly. He pulled her back into the movement. He didn't wait for her permission. He just led her effortlessly across the floor. She gave into the rhythm and to his touch. The party continued around them. Richard and Margaret were laughing at the edge of the floor. The new family dynamic seemed perfect from a distance. Only Lena and Elliot knew the complicated, messy truth underneath it. "You look beautiful tonight," Elliot said. The compliment was so sudden and sincere that Lena stumbled. He caught her immediately. His grip was firm and possessive. He held her there for a second longer than needed. "Stop it," she whispered. Her face was flushed with embarrassment. "We agreed to wait until the wedding was over." Elliot let out a quiet, amused breath. He didn't look away from her face for a single moment. "I am a man of my word," he promised. "But that does not mean I have to stop being honest with you." He stepped closer. "You are running out of excuses, Lena, and I am running out of patience for your games." Lena felt her pulse quicken. He was right. She had been fighting the attraction since the night at the club. But now, it wasn't just about the one-night stand. It was about something much deeper and more dangerous. "We are family now," she reminded him desperately. She was trying to convince herself more than him. Elliot chuckled again. It was a dark, dangerous sound that made her knees feel weak. It was very effective. "Legally, yes," he agreed. He stopped moving again. He held her face gently between his large, warm hands. "But you and I both know that family is just a label. It does not change what happened between us." He looked at her with such intensity that she couldn't breathe. "I am not going anywhere," he stated firmly. "And neither are you." He leaned in closer. For a second, she thought he would kiss her in front of everyone. Then, he pulled back. He offered her a small, knowing smirk. "Let's go back to the table." He turned her around and walked her back to her seat. He left her there, trembling and completely confused by him. The wedding reception finally wound down as the moon climbed high. Guests drifted away, leaving the grand hall quiet. Lena sat at the table, watching the shadows dance on the floor. She felt utterly exhausted. Tired, a deep voice asked. She did not need to look up to know it was Elliot. He pulled out the chair next to hers and sat down. He loosened his silk tie, looking relaxed but intensely focused. "I am just ready for this day to end," Lena admitted quietly. Her ankle was throbbing again. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the overwhelming stress of the last few days. She felt truly trapped. "It is over now," Elliot said. He reached out and took her hand. His skin was warm against her cold palm. She did not pull away. The silence of the hall felt heavy, filled with all their unsaid words. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We go back to work. We go back to being boss and assistant." She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. He looked at her with a strange, softening expression. "Nothing will ever be the same," Elliot answered honestly. He traced her knuckles with his thumb. "You know that, Lena. You can try to run, but you cannot hide from the reality of what we have started together." "My mother is happy," she whispered. "I cannot ruin this for her. That is my only priority." Elliot leaned back, watching her intently. "I am not asking you to ruin anything. I am asking you to be honest. I am terrified," she confessed. The truth finally tumbled out. "Everything is moving too fast. I feel like I am losing control." Elliot stood up and offered his hand. "Let me help you back to your room." They walked slowly through the dark, quiet resort grounds. The crickets chirped loudly in the night. Lena leaned against Elliot for support. His presence was a steady anchor in her chaotic world. They reached her door. "Thank you," she said, looking down at the carpeted floor. She felt awkward and vulnerable. Elliot did not leave. He stood in the hallway, blocking her path to the sanctuary of her own private room. "You are not going to thank me," he said firmly. He reached out and brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. His touch sent a jolt of electricity through her. "I am not that kind of person, Lena. What do you want from me?" she asked. She looked up at him, her heart pounding. "You have the power. You have the money. You have everything. Why are you so obsessed with me?" Her question echoed in the hall. Elliot stepped closer. He placed both hands on the wall on either side of her, trapping her. "Because you are the only thing in my life that I cannot fully predict," he whispered. "That scares me, and it excites me." He leaned down, his face inches from hers. She could feel his warmth. "I do not want your professional respect," he admitted. "I want you to admit that you feel this connection as strongly as I do. Just say it." Lena felt her breath hitch. She looked into his dark eyes and saw the truth he was hiding. He was just as conflicted as she was. "I feel it," she breathed out. It was a surrender. The fight was finally over. Elliot kissed her then. It was not like the first time. It was slow, deliberate, and filled with deep emotion. It was a promise. Lena wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. The world outside ceased existing. When he finally pulled away, his forehead rested against hers. "Tomorrow is a new day," he murmured. "We figure this out together." He kissed her one last time before stepping back. "Get some sleep, little sister." He turned and walked down the quiet hallway, leaving her standing there. Lena pressed her hand to her lips, feeling the lingering heat. She knew the path ahead was dangerous, but she also knew she couldn't turn back. She entered her room and closed the door, locking it behind her. She leaned against the wood, a small, genuine smile forming on her face. The secret was out, at least to them. The game was over. Life was beginning. Sunlight streamed into Lena's room, casting long, golden patterns across the floor. She woke up feeling a strange sense of peace she had not known in days. The wedding was officially over, and the secret was now a shared burden between her and Elliot. She sat up and stretched, her ankle feeling significantly better. She walked to the window and looked out at the resort gardens. The world looked exactly the same, yet everything had fundamentally shifted. She was no longer just the assistant. A soft knock sounded at the door. Lena smoothed her hair and opened it. Elliot was standing there, looking perfectly composed in a light linen shirt. He held a small tray with coffee and a single, decadent chocolate truffle. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I thought you might need this." He handed her the coffee. His eyes searched hers for any sign of regret. Lena took the cup, offering him a small, genuine smile in return. "I don't regret it," she said softly, anticipating his concern. Elliot's expression softened instantly. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The air in the room felt light, devoid of the previous tension that had haunted them. "We have to be careful," Lena said as she sipped her coffee. She was thinking about their parents, who were now enjoying their honeymoon. Elliot nodded in agreement. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching her closely. "I have already thought about that," Elliot replied. "We return to the city tomorrow. I will maintain professional boundaries at the office, but the late nights and the secrets end. We create our own path outside of their shadow." "And if they find out?" Lena asked. She knew her mother's heart was fragile. Elliot stood up and walked over to her, taking her hands in his. "We tell them the truth when the time is right. We face it together. No more lies. Together." She repeated the word, letting it settle in her mind. It felt good to stop fighting the inevitable. She had spent so much time building walls that she hadn't realized how much she wanted him to tear them down. The car ride back to the city was quiet but comfortable. The heavy silence of the past few days had been replaced by a peaceful understanding. Elliot drove with one hand on the wheel, the other occasionally brushing against hers. As the city skyline appeared in the distance, Lena felt a surge of excitement. She was ready to start this new chapter. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid of the challenge that lay ahead. Elliot pulled the car over at a scenic overlook. He turned to her, his gaze intense and promising. "This is just the beginning, Lena." He leaned in, kissing her with a depth of feeling that left her breathless and sure of her choice. They were no longer just a boss and an assistant, or even just step-siblings. They were two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of places. And as the city lights flickered to life, they started their journey home. Back at the office, the air was cold and clinical. Elliot sat behind his massive mahogany desk, his face a perfect, emotionless mask. Lena stood before him, notebook in hand, acting as if the wedding trip had never occurred. "The merger documents are ready for your signature, Mr. Crawford," she said. Her voice was steady, professional, and detached. It was a role they both played with expert precision. No one in the office suspected a single thing. Elliot signed the papers without looking up. "Good work, Miss Bennett. You may return to your desk." His tone was strictly business. Lena nodded and turned to leave. She felt his burning gaze on her back, but she never turned around. It was a strange, thrilling game. To the rest of the world, they were just boss and employee. But in the quiet moments, the brief brush of hands as he passed her files, or the lingering look in the elevator, they remained bound by their secret. Weeks passed, and their carefully constructed reality thrived. However, a new challenge emerged. Richard and Margaret returned from their honeymoon, glowing with happiness. They invited the family for dinner at the Crawford estate. "I have such wonderful news," Margaret announced during dessert. She looked at Richard, then at the table. "We have decided to host a large gala next month to celebrate our marriage. We want you both to be the main hosts." Lena felt a jolt of anxiety. Hosting a gala meant working together in front of the city's elite. Elliot, however, did not hesitate. "That sounds like a fantastic idea, Mother. We would be honored to assist you with the preparations." His eyes met Lena's. There was a challenge in them. He wasn't afraid of the exposure. He wanted to push their boundaries. Lena took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Yes, it will be a wonderful evening," she agreed, her voice firm. The following weeks were a blur of logistics and late-night meetings. They spent hours at the Crawford estate, finalizing guest lists and venue details. The line between professional and personal began to blur even more. One evening, while working alone in the estate's library, the stress boiled over. "This is getting complicated," Lena sighed, closing her laptop. "Keeping this up around them is becoming nearly impossible. They notice everything." Elliot stood up and walked around the desk. He took the laptop from her hands and set it aside. "Then let them notice," he whispered. He sat on the edge of the desk, pulling her between his knees. "I am tired of hiding, Lena." He reached out and traced the line of her jaw. "The gala is the perfect time. We are already standing in the spotlight. Why not just tell them? We have nothing to be ashamed of. We are two consenting adults who found something real." Lena looked at him, searching for the fear she felt. She found none. Elliot was ready to claim their reality. The realization hit her like a wave. She had been protecting an image that no longer mattered to her. "If we tell them," she whispered, They might be upset. It will change everything. Elliot took her face in his hands. It will change the lie, yes, but it will finally give us the freedom to be who we actually are. She leaned her forehead against his. The library was silent, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock. Okay, she murmured, a sense of relief washing over her. We tell them at the gala. We stop running and start living. Elliot kissed her not with the caution of a secret, but with the confidence of a future. They were no longer victims of the situation. They were the architects of their own fate. The gala would be their liberation. The grand ballroom of the Crawford estate sparkled with crystal chandeliers and expensive floral arrangements. The city's elite mingled while jazz music played softly in the background. Lena wore a stunning midnight blue gown that shimmered under the lights. She felt a hand settle firmly on the small of her back. She did not need to turn to know it was Elliot. He looked regal in his black tuxedo, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. He leaned in close to her ear. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. His voice was calm, yet it carried an underlying current of intensity. Lena nodded, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked at her mother and Richard, who were laughing together near the podium. "I am," she whispered. She felt a strange surge of courage. She had spent months worrying about their reaction, but tonight she finally felt free. She didn't want to hide anymore. She wanted to walk beside him, openly and without any shame. Richard stepped up to the microphone, tapping it to get the crowd's attention. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight is about family and new beginnings." He signaled for Elliot and Lena to join him on the stage. They walked up together, hand in hand. The room went quiet. The crowd stared, whispering to one another as they saw the way Elliot held Lena's hand, not with the casual grip of a sibling, but with the undeniable intensity of a partner. Elliot took the microphone from his father's hand. "My father and Margaret have built a beautiful life together," Elliot began, his voice projecting clearly through the room. "And in the process, they brought Lena into my life. I have spent a long time trying to define our relationship by their rules." He looked at Lena, then back at the crowd. "But tonight, I am here to tell you that the most unexpected things in life are often the most valuable. Lena is more than a stepsister. She is my partner, my equal, and the person I choose." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Margaret's face went pale, and Richard looked shocked, his eyes darting between the two of them. The tension was palpable, thick enough to suffocate, but Elliot didn't flinch. He held his ground. Lena stood by his side, her head held high. She saw the confusion on her mother's face, but she also saw the love that had always been there. It would take time for them to understand, but she knew they would eventually accept it. "We didn't intend to start this way," Lena added, her voice clear and steady. "But we found something worth fighting for." The room remained silent for a long moment, the shock slowly giving way to whispers as the gravity of their words sank in. Richard was the first to move. He walked toward them, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Lena feared the worst, but then he sighed and placed a hand on Elliot's shoulder. "You certainly know how to make an entrance," he said softly. The party resumed with a different atmosphere, but the burden of secrecy had been lifted from their shoulders. They had faced their greatest fear and come out stronger on the other side. They walked off the stage and stepped onto the dance floor. Elliot pulled her into his arms, and they began to dance, surrounded by the elite of the city. They were no longer hiding in closets or behind professional masks. They were finally, truly, themselves. The world could talk, but it didn't matter. "We survived," Lena whispered as she rested her head on his shoulder. Elliot spun her around, a rare, genuine smile gracing his handsome face. "We didn't just survive, Lena. We won. We have the rest of our lives to figure out the details." As the music swelled and the lights dimmed, they knew the hard part was over. They had built a foundation out of a chaotic mistake, and it was stronger than anyone had expected. They were ready for whatever came next. The aftermath of the gala was surprisingly peaceful. The initial shock had settled into a quiet acceptance. While the social circles buzzed with gossip, Lena and Elliot found solace in their own private bubble. The media eventually turned their attention elsewhere. They moved into a penthouse downtown, leaving the heavy expectations of the family estates behind. It was a space that belonged entirely to them. No corporate hierarchies, no parental interventions, just their own evolving rhythm of life. One rainy afternoon, Lena stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights blur. Elliot walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder, his presence a comforting weight. Do you ever miss it? He asked softly. The structure, the anonymity, the safety of being just a boss and an assistant. Lena leaned back into his embrace, closing her eyes. She felt completely at home in his arms. I don't miss the hiding, she replied. I think I spent so much time being afraid of what people would think that I forgot to ask myself what I actually wanted. She turned in his arms to face him. I want this. I want us. The professional dynamic between them had also transformed. Elliot stepped back from the day-to-day grind of his company to focus on new ventures, and he encouraged Lena to pursue her own ambitions. She launched her own consulting firm. They became a powerhouse couple, both in their professional circles and in their personal lives. The tension of the early days had evaporated, replaced by a profound respect and a partnership built on genuine trust and shared goals. On their first anniversary, they returned to the resort where everything began. It was a symbolic trip, a chance to acknowledge how far they had come. They walked along the same beach, the salt air crisp and refreshing. It feels like a lifetime ago, Lena remarked, looking out at the vast ocean. Elliot held her hand, his thumb stroking her skin. It was a lifetime ago. We are different people now. We are the architects of our own reality. They spent their final evening at the resort watching the sunset. It was a quiet moment, reflecting on the path that had led them to this point. They had navigated the complexities of family, professional scandal, and personal doubt. Are you happy? Elliot asked, his voice low and sincere. Lena looked at him, at the man who had been her boss, her secret, her enemy, and now her everything. She knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. I am, she said with a radiant smile. I wouldn't change a single mistake we made, because they led me to you. Elliot pulled her close and kissed her, a culmination of all their shared history and their promising future. They left the resort the next morning, not as two people fleeing from a mess, but as two people building a future. They had turned an accidental encounter into a lifetime of possibilities. And as they drove away, they didn't look back. Months later, the penthouse was filled with the soft, warm glow of a Sunday morning. Lena was sitting at the kitchen island, nursing a cup of tea. Elliot stood by the counter, expertly preparing a simple breakfast for the both of them. The rush of the corporate world felt like a distant memory. They had found a rhythm that was entirely their own. There were no more stolen glances in hallways or panicked heartbeats in dark closets. Just the quiet comfort of home. Elliot placed a plate in front of her. He leaned down and kissed her temple, his touch lingering. I have a surprise for you, he said, his voice light with genuine excitement. Lena looked up, her curiosity piqued by his mysterious tone. A surprise? She asked, setting her tea down. After the gala and the move, I thought you were all out of surprises. Elliot laughed, a rich, genuine sound that always made her heart soar. He walked over and sat beside her. I found a place, Elliot said. He pulled out a tablet and showed her a listing for a historic property nestled in the hills outside the city. It was a beautiful, secluded estate, far removed from the constant scrutiny of their old lives. It's not just a house, he continued. It's a blank slate. Somewhere we can truly build a life without any of the old ghosts. A place where we can decide what our future looks like, completely on our own terms. Lena looked at the images of the sprawling garden and the quiet, sun-drenched library. She saw a vision of their future that felt both grounded and infinite. It was the perfect next step for them. She felt tears of joy prick her eyes. It's perfect, she whispered. She reached out and took his hands, feeling the strength and the unwavering support he had given her from the moment they decided to stop fighting and start building. It is exactly what we need. They spent the afternoon discussing plans for the move, dreaming about the garden they would plant and the quiet evenings they would spend on the porch. Every plan was a testament to the life they had earned through grit and honesty. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and orange, they sat together on the balcony. They were two people who had turned a complicated, messy beginning into a story of profound, enduring love. We really did it, Lena said, looking at the city skyline. We made it through the fire, and we are still here. Elliot pulled her close, resting his head against hers. We did, he agreed, and we are just getting started. They watched the stars emerge, feeling a deep, quiet gratitude for the journey. They were no longer defined by the secrets they kept or the roles they played. They were simply two people in love, ready to walk into their future together. 5 years had passed since that fateful morning at the resort. The estate in the hills had become a vibrant home, filled with laughter and the quiet peace they had long craved. It was a sanctuary that felt truly and entirely theirs. Lena stood in the sprawling garden, watching the golden sunlight filter through the ancient oak trees. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment that she had never imagined possible. The life she had once thought was a ruin had become a masterpiece. Elliot walked out from the house, his stride relaxed and confident. He had traded his sharp suits for comfortable attire, yet he still carried that same commanding presence. He wrapped his arms around her, pressing a soft kiss to her hair. "The team is ready for the foundation laying," he said quietly. He was referring to the new community center they were building together in the city. It was their way of giving back, of turning their success into something lasting for others. Chapter 35, Reflections on the Past. "Do you think your father would believe us now?" Lena asked, looking at the distant horizon. Elliot smiled, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "He would be surprised, but I think he would be proud of what we have built." They had maintained a healthy relationship with their parents, built on transparency and respect. The initial turbulence of their reveal had faded, leaving behind a family dynamic that was far more genuine than the one they had known before. "We did it the hard way," Lena mused. Elliot laughed softly, tightening his hold on her. "The hard way is usually the only way to find something truly authentic. I wouldn't trade a single second of that struggle for anything." Chapter 36, The Enduring Bond. They walked together toward the house, their fingers interlaced. Their connection was as strong as ever, a bond forged in secret, tempered by adversity, and solidified by choice. They had proven that love could conquer even the most tangled webs. As they entered the home they had built with their own hands, the world outside felt smaller and less significant. What mattered was the life they shared, the trust they had nurtured, and the future they continued to map out every single day. "What is next for us?" Lena asked as they settled into the quiet comfort of their living room. Elliot looked at her, his eyes filled with a promise that had never wavered. "Whatever we want. The canvas is entirely ours, my love." They sat together in the fading light, two people who had transformed a chaotic, accidental collision into a beautiful, enduring partnership. Their story was no longer a secret, but a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of love.